I'm Keith Sherman. I went to Washington University, graduating with a BSBA in 1977, but I spent all my time in the theater department. PAD is new to me. What it taught me about me. I came to me at WashU because of my life in the theater there. And now I'm getting all choked up even saying that because it's so impactful and it was just such a glorious experience.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the PAD podcast. My name is Rob Morgan, and as our guest today mentions, I am having more fun than should be legal doing this podcast. I'm very excited to bring to you this episode with a legendary, although I think he wouldn't admit it as he does on the air, but he's a legendary public relations, marketing, and communications strategist, Keith Sherman, with Keith Sherman and Associates, headquartered in New York City. Keith is an alum, of course, of WashU, and specifically the PAD. Spent a lot of time, as he'll talk about, working on stage and off stage at the PAD, even for student life. So you'll hear all about that. But for 36 years, he's represented 400 shows on off-Broadway tours. He's just done it all. The only person he hasn't represented is me, and that's my fault. So I'm very excited to bring to you this episode with Keith Sherman. Enjoy. My guest today on the PAD podcast is alum Keith Sherman. Keith Sherman, thank you so much for joining the Performing Arts Department PAD podcast.
It's my pleasure. I'm really happy to be here with you, Rob.
I'm so delighted to talk to you. I am remiss if I didn't say that I missed an opportunity very recently when you were here in St. Louis with the figure skating championships. Do I have that right? You were just in St. Louis for that?
You do. My PR firm represents U.S. figure skating, and we were there for the championships en route to Milan and the Olympics.
Amazing. That is amazing. I was in Florida doing a show and was landing at Lambert, and I saw posters for the event that you just left town for. And I was like, I just missed my chance to talk to you. So thank you for your time today. I'm very, very grateful for that time. So let's kind of start, if you don't mind, at the beginning. Where did you grow up, and how did you find your way to the campus of WashU?
Well, I'm in the suburbs of New York. I grew up in Jersey, about 45 minutes from the city. And I have early memories of my parents taking my sister and I into New York on weekends to see all the attractions, the Statue of Liberty, all the various museums. I have a distinct memory of waiting online one year to see the Christmas show at Radio City with the Rockettes and,
Nice.
going to see shows. My parents introduced me to the theater, and that was a wonderful thing. And
Wow.
then I have a memory of, I think I was 13, my high school English class brought the whole class in to see a musical called 1776, the original Broadway production, which is about the founding fathers and our Declaration of Independence. And there's a moment, the final moment of the show, where the scrim comes down and then the light shift, and then you see this document, which is the Declaration of Independence.
Sure.
For a 13-year-old child who's studying that in social studies, everyone leapt to their feet. And all of a sudden, I felt this shock go through my body and I started sweating. And I
Really?
really didn't understand what was happening. And I sat down and I was almost breathless. And I said to myself, what the hell was that? And how do I feel it again?
Oh,
And
nice.
that was a moment I can trace back to, childhood, where I fell in love with the theater. And
Wow.
by the time I was 16, the bus to New York would stop in front of my high school. It was 45 minutes to Times Square. I would cut classes on a Wednesday, hop on the bus, buy a ticket to a Wednesday matinee, and then get home before my family knew what I had done.
Really?
I saw Hair that way, the original production of Hair at the
Nice.
Biltmore Theater.
Amazing. Amazing. Another part of one of the hats I wear is with my union, United Scenic Artists, and we interviewed Robin Wagner right before he passed away, who
Mm.
designed Hair, and his daughter said she saw Hair when she was like 5 years old. She was
Was Robin a WashU graduate?
No, he was not. No, he was not. But we felt very lucky to interview him as sort of an oral history of famous designers like him.
One of the
And
greats. One of the
yeah,
greats.
it must have been maybe a month after that he passed. But yeah, I'll never forget his daughter saying, "We were like, well, when did you see your dad's first show?" And she's like, "Well, I saw Hair when I was 5."
That's progressive.
I'm like, "Well, that works. You're a child of the theater."
That's
So
it. Theater people
yeah.
don't really put those barriers up.
Sure. So it's fair to say that the die was cast for you at an early age.
I have a memory too of in my as a teenager, I fell in love. I was 8 years old when I fell in love with three girls from Detroit, the Supremes. And I have memories of this is long before the internet existed at my public library on Thursday afternoons waiting for Variety to come in because there was a column about all the nightclubs in the country. That doesn't exist anymore. So I would follow the Supremes and see where they were playing, and that was one page. Then I would turn the page and I started reading Variety cover to cover
Oh, wow.
when I think I was, I don't remember, I was 12 again or 13. And
Amazing.
that emphasized, my interest and my love for what I ultimately fell into.
That's amazing. Amazing. So what possessed someone who had such a rich history of theater from New York to come to St. Louis? Like what brought you to Wash U? What
My uncle was there for a year. So
oh,
that's how I knew about it. And then he fell in love with the woman who became his wife, and he didn't graduate, but that's why my mother knew about it. And
ah,
when I was applying to colleges, I mean, St. Louis, I didn't even know where that was.
yeah.
But I remember flying there for an interview for a day. And whatever I said, it must have worked because I got in and I had 4 glorious years there. I
Nice.
just had such a wonderful and rich experience at WashU and in St. Louis. I had what I thought was the best job on campus for a student. I sold all the advertising for Student Life.
Oh,
I
nice.
started as a freshman, and by the time I was a senior, I mean, I was doing fairly well for myself as a student, but that was the student newspaper. And,
Yeah, still is.
again, it formulated my interest in the media to a
Mm,
degree.
got
And
it.
I can trace that to, back then.
Wow. And did you come to WashU with the notion that you would be an actor or study drama, or did you have
Oh,
other interdisciplinary
God.
or cross-disciplinary interests?
Well, my degree is actually from the business school. I have
Gotcha.
a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, I did that for my parents because my mother, they wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or something. But my first year was, I think, the first or the second that Edison had just opened. It had just opened. It was brand new. And I ended up spending all my time, in the Edison Theater, taking acting classes, taking dance classes. One of the great things about WashU was this broad-based education that I got. I mean,
Yeah.
I stage managed shows. I learned about lighting design. I learned about set design. I learned about the different disciplines that go into creating a play, even on a modest student level, because when you're working in it ultimately professionally, all of that comes into play. The basics are still the basics. The budgets shift and
Yeah.
the expectations shifts, but the basics are still very much there.
Of course. Of
And
course.
that gave me this great education and ultimate understanding about putting a show together.
Yeah, yeah. I have a lot of guests on this podcast who say, well, I got a degree in this that was not drama, but I think that's more a feature than a bug, quite honestly. This podcast is meant to sort of show students that they can take any number of branches from the same tree and find their way in different, as you have, adjacent to Broadway, literally.
Well, that's the process of discovery. And
Yeah.
one of the great things, and one of the things I loved about Wash U was the variety
Mm,
that you could get a degree in business, but you could be taking dance classes
yeah,
and learn about scenic design or biology or whatever your interests were.
sure.
It was there for you to discover. And if you're a curious person, as I am, I mean, so much just opened up to me, and I discovered things, and ultimately I made things happen for myself, and I had a glorious experience there. But it's
Oh,
also funny. So the time I was back at Wash U just a couple of weeks ago was the
hmm.
first time I had set foot in St. Louis since I graduated in 1977.
Wow. So has
I'm
it
a guy
changed a
that
bit?
Well, slightly. I mean, I'm a guy that lives in the moment. I don't really,
Sure.
dwell on the past. I've never been to a reunion of anything.
Uh-huh.
But the campus was at once brand new and rather familiar to me. So, I mean, the South 40 was completely different.
Right.
I mean, that was astonishing to me. But, just walking around, it looked familiar, but the entrance to Brookings, for example. I mean, the
Yes.
street was right in front, and all of a sudden now you've got buildings and
Yeah.
what is it,
Yeah.
like a lot
Yeah.
more stuff going on in front of the campus.
Yeah.
It's
That East End of
beautiful.
campus looked like the surface of the moon for a couple of years because
I'm
of,
sure,
five buildings went in at one time and
but
there's a
not
giant parking
anymore.
garage. Yeah. Sorry, go
That's
ahead.
great.
Yeah. So I understand that while you were here, you obviously walked into the Edison Theater. Did that take you back? Did that?
Oh, that was such a wonderful moment when, the dean escorted me through the backstage area. I mean, I'd done so many shows there. I had
Yeah.
seen so many shows there. I'll share with you an astonishing experience that I had at the Edison Theater as a student. I think I was probably a freshman too, but the acting company came through. It was the very first of the second year that John Houseman had founded it. And it was led by Kevin Kline and Patty Lapone and a bunch of others. And they did three plays over the course of the weekend: The Way of the World, The Time of Your Life, and The Robber Bridegroom. Stylistically, three completely different, works of the theater.
Sure.
And it moved me so deeply because each of those three created such a sense of reality and truth. And I was so deeply moved by all of it. I
Mm.
said, how can this be? How does this work? How do these people do all of this? And that was one of the things too that led me to study the theater, because I had to understand and figure out how this worked.
Sure. Sure. It's like
Flash
alchemy.
forward years later, I told that story to both Patty and to Kevin, and they both smiled at hearing that. They're very tickled by that.
Nice, nice. Your classmate, Steven Sater, who was a previous podcast guest, he was
Hmm.
on campus, I'd like to say maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I recall being in the theater in the Edison with him, and it had been the first time in quite a while for him as well. And he got honestly emotional. Like it was like a time machine had taken him back briefly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, it was a very defining part time of my life. A
sure.
young person just on a path to discovery of who I was, what I wanted to become, and
Yeah,
a half a century later, going back and stepping foot. I mean, my head was just flooded with all of these great memories.
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. It was
I,
really nice.
I
I
mean,
loved it.
interesting because as a designer, I find it, I find there's a certain reverence to space, and
Mm.
I did some shows early on in my career at Cleveland Playhouse back when they were at the Drury Theater, which is a tiny little theater in Cleveland. And I mean, Paul Newman and Alan Alda and some of these legends got their start there. And it was
Hmm.
impossible to not walk those planks without thinking about, the people that came before you and your, I guess, duty to honor their history there too, as well as what you were trying to do on that stage. But
Well, we're very much cut from the same cloth, hearing
mm,
you say that, Rob, because moments like that I find deeply moving.
mm,
There's a wonderful page in Playbill whenever you see a Broadway show. It's called At This Theater. And it's a page about all the shows and all of the artists that performed on the stage in the theater that you're sitting in the century before you.
yeah,
You read that list, and some of it is simply jaw-dropping
absolutely.
to
Yeah.
understand all of that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's I think I just got chills. It's
See,
not perceptible on a podcast, but I got chills, trust me.
that's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah. So I wanted to ask you, I understand that you had some influential teachers, and my colleagues told me that you were reminiscing with Jeffrey Matthews about Herb Metz and other folks like that. Can you talk
Mm,
about any specific faculty that were here at that time that had an impact on you?
Mr. Metz was an indelible human being. What a personality.
Hmm.
I mean, he was a professor, he was a writer. He wrote a play, I remember, that was produced while I was a student. Everything in the Garden, I think it was called. But he just had an impact. I mean, he had a style about him and a wit and a sense of humor, the likes of which I, as a late teenager, a young 20 something, had never experienced before. As this kind of flamboyant gay man, which
Mhm.
was never spoken about or really understood.
Sure.
But it was just so intriguing. And he was just so smart and knew so much and was so open to sharing all of that with all of his students. It was deeply moving.
Hmm.
It was
Yeah.
deeply moving.
Amazing.
There were a lot of other professors, but honestly, I don't remember who they were at this point.
Sure, sure. No, that's fair. Stephen Sater also spoke very highly of Herb Metz, and I believe he was one of the two colleagues, or yeah, at that time, WashU colleagues who turned him on to reading Greek after a fire he had at a apartment complex and had to jump from a third story balcony. But yeah, spoke
Stories
very
we
fondly.
hear, the lives we lead.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, talk a little bit about what happened for you post graduation. Upon leaving WashU, did you move back east?
Well, my path is, it was mine, but one of my college roommates grew up in Westchester, and his English teacher, a man named Gene Feist, was one of the two founders of the Roundabout Theater,
Hmm.
which today is a substantial force on Broadway.
Absolutely.
But back in the late 70s, we were in a 99 seat house under a supermarket on 26th Street. And we also had another theater on 23rd Street, which is now, I think, part of the School of Visual Arts.
Uh-huh.
But, so I was essentially an intern. I would rip tickets. I would be going for coffee. I would, whatever they needed.
Sure.
And one day, Gene's partner came up to me and he said, "What are you going to do when you graduate, Keith?" I said, "Well, I'm starting to look for a job." He said, "How would you like to be our marketing director?" I said, "Sure." So I started at the
Was it that
Roundabout.
easy? Just
It
sure.
was that was my point of entry.
Yeah.
I remember, they paid me, they offered me $200 a week,
Yeah.
and they said after taxes it would be $144. So they paid me off the books $144 a week. And that lasted for a year, I remember. So I was the director of audience development was my title. And, I was responsible for the marketing. I worked with printers and such. And there was one fellow that we owed $200 to. I mean, the theater was broke. It was
Yeah.
just dead broke. And one day I walked into the theater and the printer that we owed the money to was standing there and he beat me up in the lobby. I mean, he
What?
was this linebacker type of a man. He was just this, and I had like blood pouring from my face
What?
in
Oh
the
my
middle of
Lord.
the day. And it was like, I think I need to find a new job. So I had been at Roundabout for a year. And again, this was before the internet or email existed.
Sure.
But I made a list of producers and general managers and advertising agencies and press agents.
Hmm.
And I walked my resume and a letter off to these offices and I dropped it off. And a few days later, I got a phone call from a man named Herman Crowitz. Excuse me, Seymour Crowitz. Herman was his brother. Herman produced My Fair Lady. But
Ah,
Seymour was a publicist, and he had been on Gypsy and My Fair Lady. And he had three shows that were starting. One was The Crucifer of Blood, which wasn't Glenn Close's debut, but it was her second show on Broadway, and she was
wow.
already above the title in the original Helen Hayes Theater before the Marriott Marquis had it torn down. And we did another play with Rex Harrison and Claudette
Wow.
Colbert and George Rose.
All legends.
And, I was his assistant for a year, and then all three shows closed, and he had to fire me. and I went on unemployment, which at
Hmm.
that time was called Club 90. It
Oh,
was the unemployment office on Broadway and 90th Street.
oh, I
And you
see.
would go up there, and it was all theater people who had been fired from jobs, actors, and me, a press assistant. We
Sure.
called it Club 90 affectionately. And then I landed another job, my next job with another press office, and then another one, and then another one. I remember going into work for a couple once. I walked in on my first day of of work, and my name was on the press release as a contact for a new show starring Ginger Rogers and the Rockettes at Radio City Music Hall. The
Wow.
client was Radio City Music Hall. So I became a publicist, a press agent.
Sure.
I started as an assistant and I worked my way up over many, many gigs, many, many shows. I mean, ultimately now I've handled about 400 shows on
Yeah.
Broadway, off Broadway, and tours. But I started with this company at Radio City, and I was there for a few years. Then I went to work for another guy named Lee Salters and Roskin. Lee was in California. A guy named Sheldon Roskin was in New York. We were handling Barbra Streisand, Frank Sinatra. We launched Whitney Houston's first album. And
Wow.
it was there. I was in the theater department working on 42nd Street, the original production, which Robin Wagner designed.
Yep.
I came in the second or the third year, working under David Merrick, and a ton of other Broadway shows. And
Hmm.
the Royal Shakespeare Company, for example, came in with
Sure.
a two-hander production of Much Ado in Cyrano,
Yeah.
with Derek Jacobi and Jeanette Cusack at the time. And I lasted there for 6 years, and I have a clear memory. A friend of mine called me up. He was a producer for Disney at the time, and he was producing a special. And Brian Boitano was in the special. Brian, this was in 1988. Brian had just won the gold medal for our country in figure skating.
Yeah.
And he said, Brian is a PR guy, but he's not happy. Do you want to meet him? Well, 2 days later, he and I had dinner. That was in 88, the summer of 88. And Brian is still a client of ours and
That's
become a
amazing.
dear friend and someone we represent. And it was through Brian that I met the gentleman who runs Matt Farrell, U.S. Figure skating. So things sometimes come full circle.
They sure
Uh,
do.
but I've been in business now for 36 years.
Yep.
We are at the moment a staff of four. One fellow is with me for 27 years. Another fellow is with me for 26, and our assistant for 18. And we do a range of things, doing the PR work for theatrical productions, on, off Broadway tours, film, television, music, books,
Yeah.
skating. We're
Sure.
all over the place. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a lot of interests and I pursue them.
Yes.
And, so far
You
so good.
and Keith Sherman and Associates. I was on your website, and I mean, it's a who's who of not just theater, but live performance in general, whether that be uh, figure skating or or anything not figure skating. It's
One of
amazing.
the great things that happened to me when I was with Salters and Roskin, it was the end of Alex Cohn's tenure with the Tony Awards. He had done it for 20 years and it was coming to an end. And Lee's former partner was a guy named Harvey Sabinson. And Harvey had, after Alex ended his tenure, we were hired to do the PR for the Tony Awards.
Hmm.
And I was in the theater department, so I was working on the theater side, and our TV people were working on the TV side. Well, that moment turned into my representing the Tonys for 18 years. So I did it for 3 years with Salters and Roskin, and then it was with Brian Boitano who hired me to do this television special that he was starring in at some glacier in Alaska. And, the guys that I work for, I was saying, I want a raise, I want something, and nothing was forthcoming. So I decided to open my own shop at that point. And it had been 3 years since I was working on the Tonys, and ultimately the Tonys came with me when I opened
Yes.
my own business, and it stayed for 15 years. That's all in the past now. But for the past 15 years, one of our clients has been the Drama Desk Awards.
Yes.
And for the past decades, we have been representing the Chita Rivera Awards for dance and choreography. So and many other types of award shows in music. And we're about to do the Kleban Prize right now. That's on Monday.
Yeah.
Um, Using the royalties that Ed Kleban, who wrote a chorus line, he gives them to two young book writers. What award gives money to book writers? The
Wow.
Kleban Prize. And it's a substantial chunk of change. So that's been a client for, I don't
I
know,
love
20.
it. I love it. The aforementioned Robin Wagner told us in an interview that the chorus line moment where the curtain grand drape goes up only just so far and you see only legs, he said that
Mhm.
was almost a mistake. Like someone was flying it out and somebody just yelled, "Stop. That's good. Like just don't move it anymore." This is a perfect way to
Isn't it funny how moments like that, theatrical moments, how something like that is born from a
happy
supposed
accidents.
error that turns into one of the most impactful moments of a show?
Incredible. Yes, absolutely true. Wow. You've had such a career as for myself actually and for all the listeners, is there such a thing as a typical day in your current role and for your role of your staff? Is there a lot of travel or is it
Well,
I
there used
don't
to be travel before the pandemic. Now,
right.
with the advent of Zoom, there's very little,
Sure.
I needed to come to St. Louis because we had this huge event, but I couldn't do that on Zoom.
Yeah, of course.
But most of the things I used to travel for, unless I'm opening a show or, need to, something's happening in a city other than New York,
Yeah.
you don't have to go, or, I collaborate with somebody locally,
Yeah.
and then the show saves money that way.
Sure. Huh.
But it's been quite a ride, and still I am having more fun than should be legal. I just love what I'm doing, and I just plan to keep on doing it until such a time I can't anymore.
I love it. I love it. You have such a positive attitude, and it reminds me of an interview I actually read today that you did in, yeah, I want to say April of 2020. Like, I mean, we were peak COVID at
Oh,
that point,
yeah.
and you, I think you may have been the only one I think on the planet that had this. You had a kind of positive, optimistic outlook that we will get through this. And yes, theater has been shut down everywhere. Live performance in general should have been shut down, but we will get through this. And you compared it to an extent to everything else that you had lived through at that point. That had kind of, I guess, in a way, prepared you for that moment. Am I putting words in your mouth? Is that
No,
a?
no, there's truth to that. I mean, we learn, first of all, I'm an optimist by heart.
Hmm.
It's just who I am as a human being, and I share that. I mean, you can't live and exist and thrive in the theater for decades
Yeah,
unless you see a light ahead.
yeah,
And so many people don't, but I share my positivity with a lot of people, and I've just been blessed. I mean,
yeah. That's amazing.
with longevity on a lot of levels, and I love giving back in that way, but I think it's important to just
Sure.
forge ahead and see the light.
I love that. I love that. It's a great philosophy to have. Some years ago, when I was in graduate school, I was recently married, and I had asked a teacher of mine who taught scenic painting. His name was Mark, and I said, "Mark, how long have you been married?" He said, "30 years, I think it was at that point." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" I mean, to me, that I was in year one, right? So
Beautiful.
I said, what's your secret, Mark? Please tell me your secret." And he said 2 words. Well, 3 words actually. Separate bank accounts.
Well, my
So,
husband and I have separate bank account. We're 39 years together, but we also have plenty of joint accounts
of
together.
course, of course.
It's not about that.
Yeah.
You can't take
Sure.
yourself too seriously.
Sure. That
Live and
honestly,
laugh at it all.
well, I guess for me, that was a preface to a question about, I mean, not only have you been successful, but you've managed to keep people working for you for a very long time who are very loyal and I'm sure they do it because they love the work and they love working with you. So, from a managerial standpoint, what's your secret sauce?
Well, I mean, kindness helps.
Sure.
Total candor from my perspective. I mean, sometimes I'm more upfront than I should be.
Mm,
But that has served me well over time. It gets me into hot water a lot too. But
sure.
ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, if you do the right thing, if you treat people with dignity, and when when there's a client with steam coming out of their ears, and or there's a journalist on the phone who's just ready to slice you in half, I take the phone call.
Yeah.
I say, give him to me, and
Hmm.
I handle it and I deal with it. And they cover my butt and I cover theirs.
Nice.
And I
Nice.
treat them right. The
Yeah.
kind of basic
No doubt.
elements of life, I think. But
Yeah. I suspected that that was the answer. I mean, it's really basically human dignity and respect and that kind of thing.
yes.
Um, I read about teaching not long ago, and I do this, I believe, almost perhaps without thinking about it, is being human in front of students. The professor, I have a class of 80 students, for example, on the topic of creativity, and being human in front of that many students, it in a sense, you can say I've had a rough time, or I have my family member is ailing, and please bear with me, and the students will give you the grace, if
Mm.
you show that you are vulnerable.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
just students, it's humans, it's
Humans,
people.
yeah.
If you're whatever the situation might be, I mean, we all
That's
go
right.
through things. I
Sure.
mean,
Sure.
you
Hold
know.
on. Did you say students were human? Hang on a second. No, I'm kidding.
You're
Incredible.
funny.
Yeah, I mean, you've had such an amazing career. I wonder if you could, and I
I
kind
don't
of,
look at it that way. I mean,
yeah,
I have so much more to go. I
true.
mean,
I shouldn't have said that.
I look ahead. The past is
Yes.
what it is, and I've had
Yeah.
some terrific experiences, and I'm grateful for that. But
Yes.
I'm aspirational too
Absolutely. I
at
in no
this
way meant
moment
to do
still.
anything past tense.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But I'm just saying that my perspective is forward looking.
Yes. Yes. And congratulations, 39 years of marriage, you said? That's incredible.
Well,
I mean,
together for 39, but
yeah.
we got married on the day of our 22nd when we flew to Los Angeles when same-sex marriage was,
Yes.
was first made legal in America.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just so in awe of relationships like that. No matter what type. I mean, love is love. I am curious to know if you could take a time machine all the way back to your first year at Wash U, and not to say that you made any mistakes while you were here, but what advice, if you could, would you whisper in your own ear, or what advice would you give a current first year student just starting out on their life's journey? What would you tell them or tell yourself?
Oh, I would ask more questions and just follow my heart. I mean, I was blessed that I learned at a very early age I had zero talent as an actor.
Uh-huh.
And that was a revelation to me because, for all of us, really, we're in the theater, we're watching TV or a film. It's the actors that we see. For
Yeah.
most of it, it's acting. But I had no talent. And fortunately, I learned that. I learned that at an early age. And on top of that, I learned what I was good at. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, I'm a salesman. And oftentimes, when I'm asked what I do for a living, I love to tell people that I sell 2 hours of magic in a dark room.
I love that.
Uh,
I'm stealing that.
and
That's
it's
amazing.
yours. And that came to me all at WashU,
Hmm.
in this incubator at Edison Theater.
Hmm.
Where, we created our own shows, but we also brought in professionals who
Yeah.
shared their experience. I'll tell you, I was the student producer of a production of King Lear that was directed and starring Morris Karnofsky. Now,
Wow.
for those of you who don't know that is, Morris Karnofsky was one of the founders of the group theater in the 1930s, a seminal theater company in the United States. And he was a WashU graduate.
Wow.
And his gift to the university was to star in and direct a student production. He was
Yes.
leader, but everyone else was a student, and I was the producer.
Wow.
Um, and it was an amazing experience, just
Uh,
fantastic. Listening to
Incredible.
him, being with him, listening to stories, and him
Yeah.
being open and sharing with me and my, fellow students at the time. And
Yeah.
it just fed my interest and hunger for more and ultimately a life in the theater.
Ah, that's just a great. I think every one of us in this business has some version of that kind of story where the die was cast. I watched one of my favorite movies, Dead Poet Society. I watched that and was hooked, not just on theater, but on teaching. Like, I'm like, I want to be that. I want to do that.
Mm.
And I recall some years ago when I was in graduate school, we had a juried exhibition of sorts, and I had designed, along with some other classmates of mine, The Miser. And on the panel, the judges panel, was a who's who of theater. Ming Cho Lee, Patricia Ziprot, Edward Albee, like Martin Benson, like
Giants,
these
all
are
of
all
them.
giants. And I
Yeah.
was just like, oh my God, like this is like the dream team of theater in front of me. And I just felt not only, I mean, I was just sweating buckets and very, very nervous, but I just remember, wow, I'm going to remember this. This is going to be a moment like where you remembered this Lear and will forever. It doesn't have to be really released on DVD for you to remember it in your
No,
mind's
it's in
eye.
my
So
heart
it's in
forever.
in
And
your
it's
heart.
like when I started handling the Tonys and all of these people, these great artists and the team behind the cameras too, who were just at the top. And I was just this young kid who was just it was amazing to me. But I
Yeah,
became a peer, and
sure.
it's important to give back and to share that with
Uh,
students and others, which is, when I reached out, when I learned I was coming to St. Louis, I immediately reached out to the dean of both the theater and the business school
yeah.
and said, if there are any students that, are curious about my path, I'm happy to speak with them. But
Uh,
it was bad timing because, I was there before I guess
semester.
the semester began.
Yeah, yeah. But thank you for that. Honestly, thank you for that, for just thinking of that, about paying it forward. It means so much to us. It really, really does.
And to
We're
me too. And to
yeah.
me too, because I
Mhm.
think that's important to do in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. We're a small but mighty program here. And so it really helps to have people like yourself, who are legends, quite honestly, yourself
Oh, stop.
in this
No,
business.
no,
No,
I'm
no.
no
I mean,
legend.
to
I'm just a worker bee.
And there's something else about your career, if you don't mind me highlighting a bit, and it goes back to your first gig, where you just said the word sure. Like, I can't tell you how many times where I didn't fully know what I was committing to, and I just said sure. Like, let's figure it out later. And I feel like, and I've only been doing this podcast for a couple of years now, but this has been a theme of particularly WashU alums like yourself, who, as one of our guests, Corey Jones, said, that he said, and forgive the double negative, but he said, say no to nothing. And that if you just say yes, if you just say yes, even if you just say yes and need to figure it out. I have an actress friend of mine who told at an audition, told that they said, "Can you rollerblade? Because your character in this has to rollerblade." She said, "Sure," and she had no clue how to rollerblade. And so, but she, like the rest of us, have to take this sort of I don't know,
By the
kind
way,
of.
that's a Kander and Ebb song
Is that right?
from the act Say Yes. Liza sang it.
There you go. Yes, indeed.
Say
Yes,
yes.
say yes. So, would you say that that bit of advice as well, at least if I've highlighted?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Be aspirational. If
Hmm.
someone's asking you to do something and you don't know how to do it, learn,
Yeah.
hunker
Yeah.
down and figure it out.
Yeah.
Get to yes.
Yeah.
Oftentimes that's what I say to colleagues and clients is how do we get to yes on this? Here's
Hmm.
a conundrum. Here's a situation or a problem or an issue. How do we figure it out and get to yes?
Amazing. Yes. True. Not yes, but true. True. It's so true. Thank you. This is all really, it's really good wisdom for our students to hear. Well, I just am so grateful to you for your time. I don't want to take up too much more of it, but thank you for being on this podcast, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of really great student input back about this episode. Thank you so much for doing the interview with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, as I said, I reached out with some of this in mind because,
Yeah.
you got to play it forward. And I wish that so many of the current students benefit from what the university does and the options there for them.
So thank you for this. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And my
Very
best.
easy, Rob. I'm glad. It moves me deeply to
Oh,
talk this way because I
uh,
don't often, and it just conjures up things that I haven't thought about
mhm.
in a lot of years.
Sure, sure. And I thank you for paying it forward. Just students listening to this is really, really great wisdom for students to be creatively courageous. And so you have been in your whole
Oh,
careers.
that's a wonderful phrase.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Copyright
really,
that.
yes. Yeah,
Creatively
there
courageous.
you go. We'll steal everything. We'll steal each other's phrases. You said 2 hours. Now I forgot the phrase I was going to steal from you. 2 hours of magic in a dark theater or something
In
like
a
that.
dark room.
In a
I
dark
sell
room.
2 hours of magic in a dark room. That's what I do for a living.
That's what we all do. Is that right? That's why we do it to begin with.
Or you
Um,
make 2 hours of magic in a dark room.
exactly. Well, thank you, Keith. Thank you for your time. And
Sure, if there's any follow-up, be in touch. Let me know how I can help more and all good stuff.
all right, my many thanks to Keith Sherman for joining the PAD podcast. Tune in next month. My guest next month will be Jeff Pagliano, and then we start the fall semester, with a very special guest and Henry Chevet. Those are the two episodes coming up, so be sure to listen. Thank you.